As the Philadelphia Phillies sort through the rubble of their roster to decide who will return next year, one weakness has become clear. The elite bullpen that looked to be that way throughout the course of the season did not stand up in the playoff intensity, and they now have to address that moving forward. Now, there are plenty of questions to be asked about the guys who are currently under contract. There's a conversation to be had about whether or not Jeff Hoffman or Carlos Estevez will be back. But we did get a report of a potential target that the Phillies could be looking to in free agency that I wanted to discuss, that being Clay Holmes. Now, I bring that up to say that as I'm setting up to record this, we are midway through the Yankees and Guardians playing, and our guy, Clay Holmes, steps on the mound and gives up a nice 3-spot to the Guardians. They're still midway through that inning that's just going on in the background right now as I set the record of this. So maybe not the best time to be hyping this guy up, but we got to know all sides of things, and the Phillies are plenty familiar with their relievers blowing up. So let's dive into what we know regarding the situation. We got this report from Matt Gelb of The Athletic here, who writes, quote, "Figure the Phillies to add at least 2 higher leverage relievers. One free agent to watch is still pitching this month, Clay Holmes, the Yankees righty who was demoted from the closer role but rebounded to a setup man." Now, to dive into a little bit of what we know about Clay Holmes, start off by pulling up a bit of the stats here. Shout out to Phillies Tailgate, who constantly keeps us on this. And to pull up exactly here, we have, boom, boom, the free agent target, right-handed pitcher Clay Holmes. Since joining the Yankees bullpen in 2021, he's pitched in 220 games, 217.2 innings, only allowed 174 hits over that time, 65 earned runs, just 10 home runs, 69 walks, 238 strikeouts, so over 1 in inning there, a 2.69 ERA and a 1.12 whip, that of course being over since 2021. To take a look at this year specifically for what he's produced, he's pitched in 67 games, 63 innings pitched. He's allowed 4 home runs, 68 strikeouts, so again, a little bit over 1 per inning there, just 60 hits per allowed, that's 8.6 hits per 9 innings, ERA a bit higher, a 3.14, but a whip of 1.3. Overall, he's been a guy who has seen his job taken when it comes to the true closer role, that it doesn't seem like that's something he's cut out for. To be honest, while that was once something that was very high at the top of my list, my hope was for Carlos Estevez to be that like true closer for that team. I think it's time to recognize that that's a bit of a dying breed in today's MLB, that I think in general, it's going to be much more common for really the closer to be by committee or the leverage situations, even if you want to pull up the Mets game tonight, who of course did get a victory against the Dodgers, that it was Edwin Diaz coming on the mound to pitch in the 8th inning because it was Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and the meat of the lineup there. I think that's how things are going to go across baseball, and I hate it, to be perfectly honest. I much prefer when there is that certified closer, that guy that you know is pitching the 9th, and I've pushed back on the philosophy of the high leverage innings because regardless of how high the leverage is, the bottom line is you play 9 every single game. So you got to get to that point, and I don't love the logic of burning out your best reliever in those opportunities. But to bring it back to Clay Holmes here, I don't think he's a guy that is cut out to be that certified closer. And now, and to put it in full perspective for that Yankees team, Luke Weaver has been excellent and has been a guy who has really grabbed that, I guess, closer role, although he was a guy who even kind of toned it down, saying he's ready to pitch in whatever opportunity the team wants for him. He's a pretty electric character, a guy who gives an awesome interview, really skinny guy. Doesn't look like your prototypical closer, but a guy who's getting the job done. So shout out to Luke Weaver there. I personally have kind of taken this as more of Weaver taking the job, more so than Holmes losing it, although he certainly has not pitched his best baseball of late, but we'll see what ultimately goes down here. A couple more that I did want to break down, and I did think this was funny, particularly after the fact that, of course, this has been broken literally while I was setting up here, but we're talking about the streak of longest consecutive scoreless innings in the playoffs. He was almost to Mariano Rivera, who had a 16-inning pitch. Clay Holmes at 14.2. That has been snapped as I set up and as I took that screenshot there, but I did think it was funny there. And to take a bit of a look at the Baseball Savant page here, you can see a bit of his run, what pitches that he does specialize in here. He's a guy who throws fairly hard. He's got some real deal stuff. I'm intrigued by what he can bring to the table. I did not love seeing him melt down to start this, but I guess for what it's worth, that again, the bar is a little bit on the floor from what we saw from Jeff Hoffman and Carlos Estevez. I think what is more clear to me than ever is that the postseason is just a different beast, that you can look absolutely electric throughout the entirety of the regular season, and when we get to the playoffs where things really matter, it's a little bit different environment there. And I do think we saw for Estevez and Jeff Hoffman that affected them, or they weren't quite ready to walk into the jungle. I like that Holmes has some experience in those type of situations, that he's still pitching through that can only help when moving forward. And he's still pretty young, 31 years old, still got a couple years left in that arm, isn't showing signs of slowing down. So I am intrigued by that. That is a guy that I would love to add to this mix of things, of course, assuming the price is right. I'm curious what other names manifest themselves, but I certainly agree with Gelb's point that it should be at least 2 arms, that it should be bulk up the bullpen as much as humanly possible. There's guys that still will be around. Matt Strom coming back next year. Jose Alvarado will be returning and hopefully can have a better season next year as well, as we've seen him in past seasons. But there's got to be more than just that. I want this bullpen. That's very clearly the number one, maybe not number one. I guess I would still throw that on the bats, the plate approach, and overall just not producing enough offense. But you couldn't trust that bullpen whatsoever come playoff time for this Phillies team. So there just has to be better option out there. Maybe Clay Holmes is one of them. Now, there's one other pitching battle that I did want to bring to light as we're getting a little bit of news with this guy, and it is that 5th starting spot. Now, Taijuan Walker was signed to be that guy, and I don't think any of us need any more evidence to understand that that cannot be the case. That while I like Taijuan Walker, I give him a lot of respect for how he's handled himself throughout this situation, even in the playoffs where he's not even on the roster, still in that dugout, still cheering on his guys, and a guy who has not stopped showing positivity and being the person they signed him to be. The unfortunate reality is the player they signed him to be just doesn't seem to be in there. And this isn't something that is a lack of effort. It honestly is like heartbreaking to me to hear Taijuan Walker face the media and be like, felt good physically, thought I had it, and yeah, I just didn't pitch good enough, trying my best, and it's just not happening. I'm letting the team down. I feel bad for Taijuan because I do think he genuinely wants it. It just may not be there. Now, the guy that the hope is that can take his spot is Andrew Painter. Now, the Phillies have been waiting on him for a while. He's a guy who's battled a few arm issues, 2 Tommy Johns, I believe, but he is back on the mound and pitching. And he pitched today in one of these spring leagues. And shout out to Jack Vita, who's been kind of reporting on this from down there. And he writes, among Andrew Painter's 33 pitches today, 19 were fastballs. Painter's fastball ranged from 93.7 to 98.3 miles per hour, averaging 96.8 miles per hour. His pitch mix today featured 4 cutters, 4 sliders, 4 curveballs, and 1 changeup. He struck out 2 in 2 innings pitched. And to dive a little bit deeper into that here, we do have a breakdown of his overall pitching summary here. Some really good looking stuff. That the whiff rate looking good, getting guys to chase, not getting hit around at all. This is going to be a guy to keep an eye on. I like the fact that he's already out there pitching. I think it's intriguing and speaks to what the organization thinks about it. They've obviously kind of kept that place available for him to take, and I would say the opportunity is absolutely there. So Andrew Painter is the guy that I think ideally would be that 5th starter moving into next season, and you do hope that that arm holds up and then he can absolutely get the job done for this Phillies team. The bar is fairly low considering what Taijuan Walker produced for, but that's something that I do think we should monitor throughout the entire season is how is he looking? Is he ready to ultimately step up? The Phillies do need somebody to hold things down because there was a significant drop-off for really the whole second half of the season. And really, while like that's kind of an MLB-wide issue that the 5th starter has been a problem, it just puts so much pressure on your top guys, the Zack Wheelers and Aaron Nolas, who like absolutely have to get a win when you're talking about winning series and keeping yourself in that playoff hunt. That's really my problem with the fifth rotation spot, is less so about how bad that they have been and really about like when you're that bad. That just puts so much stress and pressure on the top guys in the starting rotation. So that has to be fixed. And just like a bit of a life in that 5th starter would be really refreshing on this Phillies team. So hopefully Andrew Painter can provide that. But I do think a bullpen remains the priority for what needs to be fixed. And it will be interesting to see if Clay Holmes is a name that truly hits the market and if the Phillies jump on that. That is a guy that I like the experience. I like what he has in his arm. And a guy that I do have on my list if the opportunity presents itself. So we'll be breaking things down as it gets closer. Obviously, Holmes still pitching in the playoffs as things are going down. So we'll see how far the Yankees go. I'm personally rooting against the Yankees for the sake of I want Juan Soto out of there, and I think that's the only chance for this to occur. If they go and win the World Series, I cannot see him leaving. So that's really my vested interest. So I'm anti-New Yorker off the board. So let me know what you guys are rocking with in the comments. Boo Mets and boo Yankees. Let's go and see what happens from here. Not turning out too hot in either series at this point. Well, I guess the Dodgers taking care of business. But ultimately, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. Drop a like on this video. I'll be talking with you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.